A 43-year-old Tom Brady won his seventh championship against Patrick Mahomes, who was in his prime. Now, a conversation that's been going on for a while, I'd say about a year, has been, can Patrick Mahomes dethrone Tom Brady as the GOAT? Now, the Super Bowl wasn't just a regular game where he barely edged out Patrick Mahomes. It was a blowout. Is it possible, yes or no, is it possible for Patrick Mahomes to ever be the GOAT of the NFL? I'm going to start with Darian on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to be careful with how I approach this topic. And I want to be real and I want to slow down and just explain it. I'm the one who saying Patrick Mahomes was on the cusp of being top 5 or whatever was a little bit fast. Let's just say that. But I feel like I need to create this hypothetical situation. If we're going with Patrick Mahomes is the most talented quarterback that we've ever seen, if that's truly how we feel, and he's only in his third year starting, fourth year in the league, I think he's going to get better. I think he's going to get smarter. I think there's going to be some veteran moves that you're going to see him start having. I do not think this is the peak of Patrick Mahomes. That's one thing that's necessary to say. Secondly, him getting a 6 was going to be hard regardless. Him getting a 7 is going to be even harder. But I don't think that he needs to get to that number. I just think he needs to get close. Because I look at it and I say, if Patrick Mahomes, when he retires, we look at him and say, man, that's the best quarterback I've ever seen. Same thing we do with Dan Marino. We're like, man, that dude was on a different level. He might not have won those rings, but he was on a different level than the quarterbacks of his time. If Patrick Mahomes get to 5, maybe even 6 rings, and we look at him and we say that, yeah, he's just the best quarterback we've ever seen, then I think we have to start having the conversation. I'm not saying that he becomes that, but I do think the conversation is still alive with the right amount of rings, the right amount of team accomplishments, that we start looking at the individual and say, he was better than this other guy. That's the hypothetical situation. And in that situation, yes, there's still a conversation to be had, but it's not easy.
Definitely. So for me, I think anything is possible. If we're talking ring count, let's start there. Anything is possible. When Tom Brady came into the league, I don't think anybody saw any quarterback winning 7 rings. So it's going to be hard for anybody to catch up to that point. And some factors that go into that for any quarterback, and specifically for Patrick Mahomes right now, is his health, the right coaching staff being involved, and him keeping the right supporting cast around him. All of those 3 things are big factors for any quarterback to win multiple Super Bowls, let alone one Super Bowl. And so you have to have that on your side. When it came to Patrick Mahomes this season, he had those things on his side up until the big dance. At the big dance, it just fell apart. So he still has an opportunity with those factors on his side to come back and win 3 more, win 4 more, maybe even get to 5 or 6. He still has the opportunity. He's a better quarterback in the league right now, if we just want to go off of skill alone. And so, again, anything is possible.
I was just say, hell no. It is not possible for Patrick Mahomes to edge Tom Brady in the GOAT conversation. That conversation is officially a wrap. And what I'll say is, one, because when we looked at Patrick Mahomes, right, up until this time, we've always just assumed, when he gets to 4 or 5 championships or 6 championships. But now we've seen him in 2 Super Bowls, which he hasn't played up to standard. When you look at this game, he completed less than 50% of his passes. He had a 49 QBR on a scale of 100, a 52 passer rating on a scale of 158. And last year in the fourth quarter, he had 10 points until the 49ers and Jimmy G completely fell apart. He was able to get back in that game. So I don't know if it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to get to 4 or 5 or 6 rings, right? When we looked at Aaron Rodgers, who won a championship in his 3rd year starting, we thought it would be a foregone conclusion that he would go back. He hasn't been back to a Super Bowl yet. When we saw Russell Wilson go to 2 Super Bowls in his first 3 years starting, we thought it would be a foregone conclusion that he would continue to go to these Super Bowls. And he hasn't been back to one since. So we can't assume the same thing with Patrick Mahomes. And now that his 3rd year starting, we've seen all kind of crazy stuff, but they've only gotten 1 Super Bowl out of it. Now, 1 Super Bowl in 3 years isn't bad, but teams are only going to continue to get better and better and stopping and slowing down the Chiefs, especially if they continue to play with the reckless style of play they have, right? Because they don't take the check downs, they don't run the ball enough. They kind of just, we have the best athletes in the world and we can beat you. But like we saw this year, that can be beat. You know what I mean? If teams kind of give you everything else and take away that deep stuff and you just kind of force Patrick Mahomes to be special, we've seen that that's a formula to beat them. When we looked at down the stretch, I think over the last 10 games outside of the game where they beat the Bills in the playoffs, the Chiefs didn't have a double-digit win. right? And so all season they kind of looked, mortal. And then finally in the Super Bowl, they lost, right? And I'll say one last thing, right? The GOAT conversation exists because the main thing in the GOAT conversation that keeps it alive is imagination. When we look at Michael Jordan, who's behind me, and LeBron James, we're able to have that conversation, even though, we can compare rings or whatever, but we never saw Mike and LeBron go head to head. So the Mike purists can say, well, Mike would have did this, while the LeBron purists can say LeBron would have did this. On Sunday, we watched the what if. We saw Tom Brady beat Patrick Mahomes head to head for the second time in the playoffs. And so the only way maybe it can happen is if Tom Brady goes to a few more Super Bowls and Patrick Mahomes beats them in them. But like I said, right now that imagination is gone. We've seen them head to head on the highest stage, and Tom Brady won that. He's 7-1 right now, 10-2 appearances. And like I said, it's not a foregone conclusion that Patrick Mahomes goes back a bunch of times. So for me right now, it's signed, sealed, and delivered. Tom Brady is the GOAT.
I'll say this to that point. Last night's or Sunday night's game, for me, did not have so much impact on this conversation. I understand that they faced off 2 times in the playoffs. I completely understand that. The first one ended some controversy in the first season, and then this one right here, there's no excuse for this. But I don't look at it in a situation where it was like how Tom Brady versus Nick Foles, how they were going back and forth, and they got edged. For me, when I look at it, the story really wasn't Patrick Mahomes versus Tom Brady when the game went into action. It was really that defense. It's like you said before. He had to go be Superman, and I don't feel like he was exactly. They were on the same level playing field as far as assistance went in that game. So that game didn't have too much of effect for me in this conversation. At the end of the day, I just think it was going to be very difficult for him to get to the amount of team accomplishments. And I have to keep stressing that because y'all both talked about it, about having a team around him. It's a lot of team accomplishments to get to 7. It's a lot of team accomplishments to get to 3. All right. So that's a high number to get to. And it's going to be about more than just, is Patrick Mahomes a better quarterback than Tom Brady for him to get to those rings? So that's why the conversation is truly difficult to have. But I'm not holding last night's matchup against against Patrick Mahomes too much, especially with the circumstances that I feel like he was presented.
What I'll say to that is one thing, when you look at like championships and different things like that, as time goes on, you start to lose that context. Right? We have the context because we're watching sports right now. We're in the moment. But 10 years from now, when they're discussing Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady, nobody's going to say, oh, it wasn't Tom Brady only had 203 passing yards, or oh, it was the defense, and oh, it was this. They're just going to say Tom Brady beat Patrick Mahomes head to head in the Super Bowl, right? That's all that's going to matter. And so I think that is a huge thing. It's just the head to head. And regardless of Patrick Mahomes, regardless of what he does, he's chasing Tom Brady, and Tom Brady will have that 2-0 record. Like I said, we're having this conversation right now, 2 days after the Super Bowl. Who knows what'll happen next year in the Super Bowl if they meet again. But I think the only way that Patrick Mahomes can even start to edge Tom Brady is to, 1, get 8 rings, which, that just sounds superficial. And 2, he would have to beat Tom Brady on the highest stage, because Tom Brady has beat him on the 2 highest stages, which is the championship level at the AFC Championship and then ultimately the Super Bowl.
I think one of the key things when it comes to this whole matchup and the GOAT talk with these 2 quarterbacks was last weekend's game in the Super Bowl was very low risk for Tom Brady and very high reward, because regardless, he's out of his prime. He's doing something extraordinary. When it came to Patrick Mahomes, it was very high risk and very low reward, because he was going against an older quarterback who is still the GOAT. So it's like you have to win this game. And so I think it's going to bring some very interesting conversations when it comes to 10, 20, 30 years from now, when we're sitting at that table with your friends and family going over who is the greatest quarterback of all time. So I would like for all of you to engage in discussion in the comment section about who you think is the GOAT right now. I'm pretty sure we won't differ on Tom Brady right now, but I'm very interested to see how this evolves in the future. So we'll see y'all next time on SOS Discussion. Don't forget to like, comment, and share.